afternoon from China. To those joining from Europe, good evening if you're joining us from Australia or any other time zone. My name is Carlos. I am the China representative for EURAXESS China. And I am very, very excited to welcome you all to this webinar about the ERC grants that is organized in cooperation with the ERC Executive Agency and is designated to engage with primarily China-based researchers, but will be of interest to anyone who is interested in the grants that ERC offers. And I will take a minute to introduce EURAXESS China, the European Commission initiative to promote researcher mobility. EURAXESS China specifically is part of the worldwide hubs of EURAXESS, and our job is to provide you with the latest and most accurate possible information about European research funding and opportunities for those looking to do research in Europe, and that includes researchers from China. Joined today is Miss Alexandra Dusa, who is an officer at the European Research Council Executive Agency, the organization that provides, distributes, assesses, and organizes all the work around ERC grants. And also joining us is Professor Manuel Perez-Garcia, who is a ERC grant recipient, who has made his career here in China and therefore will be able to provide specific insights about working, doing research here in China and being deeply engaged with ERC. Today's webinar is recorded. We will aim to spend about an hour speaking about our topics and then give everyone time to ask questions and engage in a discussion. Without further ado, I give the floor to Ms. Alexandra Dusa.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Yes, hello. So good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. So today I would like to kind of walk you through all you need to know to apply for an ERC grant. And I hope that by the end of this presentation, you will be encouraged to go ahead and do so. So here's an overview of my talk. So I'll start out with a little bit of an introduction into the ERC and its grant schemes for those of you that may not be entirely familiar with that. Then I will walk you through how to prepare your proposal step by step, giving you some tips along the way. And then I will end with some specific opportunities for researchers in China. So as you may already know, the ERC is part of Horizon Europe, which is the Commission's key funding program for research and innovation, running between 2021 and 2027. The ERC is part of what we call the Pillar 1, Excellent Science. It has a budget within this framework program of 16 billion euros, and it represents about 70% of the entire Horizon Europe budget. So it's quite significant. So a few facts and figures, again, for those of you that may not be very familiar with this funding scheme. So since its creation in 2007, the ERC has already funded over 14,000 researchers. We have over 90,000 researchers and other professionals that are employed in ERC research teams. More than 2,400 patents have been generated by work done within ERC funding schemes. And over 400 startups have been also founded by ERC grantees. We have more than 220,000 journal articles published with data generated from ERC work. And there are about 900 research institutions that are currently, not currently, but have over time hosted ERC grantees. And we're proud that we have also about 92 nationalities within the family of grant holders. And also within the ERC family, there's 14 Nobel Prizes and a number of other very significant prizes. So what sets the ERC apart from other funding schemes within the Commission is the fact that it's being led by the Scientific Council. So the Scientific Council is a group of 22 eminent scientists and scholars coming from the three main domains of sciences, so life sciences, social sciences, sciences and humanities, and physical sciences and engineering. And together they have full authority over the strategy of the ERC, and they decide basically the work program that gets to be implemented. So the Scientific Council is led by our president, Maria Leptin, and she's being helped by 3 vice presidents, 1 from each of the 3 domains. So the ERC grants, they are long-term grants. They are awarded to individual researchers from all over the world that perform frontier research in any field, in any of these, in life sciences, physical sciences and engineering, or social sciences and humanities. They go to the very best scientists, and what also sets them apart from other grants is the fact that there are no thematic priorities. So the ERC basically funds investigator-driven frontier research from any field. So there's no such thing as priorities like, cancer research or other types of things to focus on. So it's entirely in your hands. It's you, the scientists, that decide what you feel is important to study. And that's what you should put in your proposals. So what about the ERCA? So the ERCA is the ERC Executive Agency. So this is the place that I work at. And what we do is we implement the strategy that is set by the Scientific Council. Our most important operation is organizing the peer review evaluation and also the follow-up on the funded projects. We are a staff of about 500 people. And out of those, about 130 of us have scientific backgrounds. So why should you apply? Why would you apply for an ERC grant? Well, it turns out that an ERC grant can offer you independence, recognition, and visibility. And it allows you to work on a research topic of your own choice. You can gain financial autonomy for 5 years. It puts you in a position to negotiate really good work conditions with your host institution. It will allow you to attract excellent team members and collaborators from anywhere in the world. You are also able to take your grant anywhere in Europe or associated country due to its portability. It's an individual grant, so it's awarded to you, so you're free to move around with it. And it can also help to obtain additional funding. So I'll spend here a couple of minutes going through the different kinds of grants that we have, in case you're not entirely familiar with these details. So what we call the main grants, the main individual grants, are the starting grants, the consolidator grant, and the advanced grants. So these grants, the main difference between them is basically the level of experience of the principal investigator that is applying. So the starting grant goes to researchers that are only between 2 and 7 years after their defense of their PhD. The consolidators are slightly more experienced, so it's between 7 and 12 years after their PhD. And the advanced grants go to researchers that have a significant track record of research achievements over the last 10 years. The amounts of the grants vary according to the seniority of the researchers. So the starting grants, you can apply for a maximum of 1.5 million euros for a maximum of 5 years. For the consolidator, it's 2 million euros also for 5 years. And for the advanced grant, it's 2.5 million euros for 5 years. In addition to these individual grants, we also have the synergy grants, which are collaborative schemes. So here it's a group of 2 to 4 principal investigators. They're quite big grants. So the normal maximum is 10 million euros, and they go on for 6 years. And what's really interesting here, and I will mention this again a little bit later, is that one PI within this 2 to 4 collaboration can be based entirely outside of the EU or associated country. So in addition to these large main grants, we also have a smaller grant, the proof of concept grant. So these ones are only available to already ERC grant holders. So if you already have obtained one of the 4 main grants, you can also apply for this proof of concept. So it's meant to bridge the gap between research and the earliest stage of marketable innovation. So for example, say that you have developed a clinical assay within one of your main grants, and you would now like to see to do some additional studies, perhaps in some patients or some other samples that will allow you to bring it a little bit closer to the clinic. So this is the purpose of this smaller proof of concept grant. So in addition to these amounts that I mentioned for each of these grants, for the 4 main grants, so not for the proof of concept, but for starting, consolidated, advanced, and synergy, you can also request additional funding above those maxes that I mentioned. So the additional funding can be up to 1 million euros, and it can be for any of these reasons. So an interesting reason for you is startup costs for moving to Europe. So say you are currently located somewhere outside of Europe or associated country, and you want to move back you want to move to Europe to a host institute in Europe, you can request within your grant an additional 1 million euros just for this to cover the cost of this move. You can also request additional budget for access to large facilities, for major equipment, and for other experimental and fieldwork costs. So what are the criteria to evaluate a proposal within ERC? So it turns out the excellence is the only evaluation criterion. So the excellence as it pertains to the research project and also the principal investigator. So the excellence of the research project is evaluated by looking at its groundbreaking nature, scientific impact, and approach. And the excellence of the principal investigator is evaluated by looking at their intellectual capacity, creativity, and commitment. A novel feature that the Scientific Council implemented as of this year's work program, so as of 2024, is that the panels are now requested to primarily evaluate the excellence of the project. So in the past, there was equal weight being given to the project and the principal investigator. However, as of this year, what the panels will evaluate primarily is the excellence of the research project. But at the same time, of course, they will look at the ability of the PI to carry out specific project. So who can apply to these grants? So researchers of any nationality, any age, as long as they are 2 years since their PhD defense, from any current working place in the world, on any topic, as I mentioned, fully bottom up. The only requirement is a letter of support from a host institution that needs to be based in the EU or associated country. So as such, they are open to the world. As I mentioned, additional funding is available to cover startup costs for scientists that are moving to Europe or associated country. One interesting feature is that dual affiliation is possible for ERC grantees. So when you obtain a grant, you are required to spend 50% of your time over the entire lifetime of the project in an EU member state or associated country. But the other 50% of the time, of course, you can spend in your current location or anywhere in the world. As I also mentioned, for the synergy grants as of 2019, it is possible for one PI to be based 100% outside of the EU or associated country. As of now, we have about 50 non-EU, non-associated country PI nationalities within the grant holders, and about 17% of project team members from third countries. So third countries are non-EU, non-associated country. Okay, so now let's go ahead and dive a little bit into the application process and how to prepare your proposal. So step one sounds obvious, but we'd like to really encourage you to get the information as early as possible. So please register early, get familiar with the Commission's funding and tender portal, download all the templates. We'd like to encourage you to read the call documents. So the information for applicants, the work program, the frequently asked questions, they may be a little bit intimidating at first because they are quite big documents with a lot of pages, but really they really contain all the information that you need to prepare a successful proposal. So spend some time doing that. Another good idea is to talk to your institution's grant office. They can always be a good source of additional information. Of course, talking to ERC grantees or other scientists that have gone through the process, even if unsuccessfully, that's also really a good source of information to prepare for your own application. In addition, if you have any specific question that pertain to your particular case and you are not able to get these questions answered by reading all these other documents, we encourage you to go ahead and contact the ERCA to ask all the questions well ahead of the submission deadline. So I've posted here the emails for the different calls for this year's, for the upcoming ones. But for example, if you have, so these email addresses, the format stays the same, but you can change the year depending on which year of the call that you're trying to ask a question about. An important thing that you need to also keep in mind, if within your proposal you will have collaborators from other scientists that will help you out through your proposal, you need to get the written consent before the submission deadline. But it doesn't need to be anything elaborate, just a simple email exchange where this potential collaborator agrees to being a collaborator is sufficient. So here I've listed just a few other useful links. I think the ERC page has a really nice format, and you can go to the different grant types and read again all the information and all that you need to apply for each specific grant. So I encourage you to go ahead and look there first. Then the next important thing you need to do is to choose your host institution. So this is entirely up to you, as long as it's in a EU member state or associated country. And we have a list of associated countries also on the ERC website. As I mentioned, you can change it during the project's life because the ERC grants are portable, so they are awarded to you, not to the institution. So you are free to move around with it. And we encourage you to negotiate early on with your host institution so that once you are awarded a grant, you already have everything in place, the details about your position, equipment, admin support, access to infrastructure, and all this kind of information. So there's a rumor going around that the quality or the fame of the host institution may increase your chances of success or a better grade in an ERC evaluation. So I'd like to dispel this rumor and tell you this is absolutely not true. The host institution is not an evaluation criterion, and the evaluators are very well aware of that, and they absolutely do not look at that when they evaluate proposals. Next, you need to choose the grant type and make sure that you are eligible. So the eligibility window for starting and COG is calculated according to the 1st of January of the year of the call. So, for example, if you were to apply for starting grant 2025, you would need to have a PhD defense date anywhere between the 1st of January 2018 and 31st of January 2022. For consolidator 2025, your PhD defense needs to be anywhere between the 1st of January of 2013 to 31st of December 2017. And remember that the reference date is the date of the successful defense. So it's not the date when the PhD was awarded, it's the date when you actually defended your PhD successfully. And it applies to the first PhD degree. So in those cases where you may have a second PhD degree, it's the first that counts for these calculations. If you have previously applied unsuccessfully to an ERC call, please check resubmission restrictions. You will be restricted to apply for a year or two. Keep in mind that, as I said, a minimum 50% of your working time needs, over the entire duration of the grant, needs to be in a member state or associated country. And you're also required to devote a certain time to the project itself. So for starting grant, you need to commit 50% of your time to work on a specific starting grant project. For consolidator, it needs to be 40%. And for advanced and synergy, it needs to be 30%. So here I just wanted to very briefly make you aware of the fact that there are extensions possible to the eligibility window for starting grant and consolidated grant. Here's a list of those possibilities. The most common one is maternity and paternity leave. So for mothers, you automatically get an 18 months extension for any child that you have, regardless of whether you have given birth before or after your PhD. So for example, if you have 2 kids, you automatically have a 3-year extension to your eligibility window. For dads, the paternity leave is calculated, it's the actual time that you've taken off. So if you've taken off 3 weeks or 1 month or 5 months, as long as you provide the documentation of the time that you took off, your extension will be also accepted. And here's down the list, you can see some other reasons that you can request extensions for. So have a look and see what may apply to you. So, and then make sure that you have the documentation that proves it. And then you can go ahead and try to extend your eligibility window. Another very, very important step in preparing your proposal is choosing the panel that will evaluate your proposal. So the panel structure for 2024 is as follows. So we have 28 panels in total, so 9 life science, 11 physical sciences, and 8 social sciences panels. So each panel has a title, a subtitle, and descriptors. So please read through them carefully and make sure that you submit to the panel that best covers the topics that are covered within your own proposal. Because like that, you ensure that the experts on those panels will best understand your proposal and will be in best position to evaluate it. So obviously choosing the right panel is very important. And the proposals are assigned to the panel of the PI's choice. So whatever you've decided in your application, the proposal will go there. You are also able to flag a secondary review panel in case you feel that the topic of your proposal really is in between 2 different panels and you cannot really choose one or the other. You can explain the situation in the part B1 of the proposal. I'll go over that in a little bit. And you can choose this secondary panel. So transfer of proposals only occurs in exceptional cases and only if there's some clear mistake on your part or if the necessary expertise to evaluate your proposal correctly is not available in the panel that you chose, but is available in a different panel. So in this case, the panel chairs of the 2 panels get together and they have a discussion and they decide together which of the 2 panels would be in best position to evaluate the proposal. So there's again a rumor going around that you should choose the panel strategically in order to increase your chances of success because there are some easy panels and some more difficult panels. So I'm here to tell you that this is absolutely not true. Please choose the panel that fits best the topic of your proposal. So all panels have equal success rates. So the budget is distributed as a function of demand. So if there are more proposals that are submitted to one particular panel, that particular panel gets more budget. But the success rate is flat overall across all the different panels. So here I'll spend a few minutes walking you through the evaluation procedure and the scoring system of the individual grants, the main individual grants, so starting, consolidator, and advanced. So these are 2-step evaluations. The step 1 evaluation starts with the remote assessment of your proposal. So your proposal goes to the panel of your choice, and it is assigned to 4 panel members within that panel that have expertise that closely matches your topics best. So these panel members will evaluate your proposal in a remote setting, and they will be acting as generalists as step 1. So they will not look at the details they will not look at it from an expert point of view, but as a generalist. So part B1, which is the synopsis, that is evaluated at step 1, synopsis and CV, is mostly evaluated on feasibility. So once the panel members have completed their individual assessments, they are invited to Brussels for a panel meeting where they all get together and they go through each of the proposals that have been submitted to that particular panel, and they discuss each of them individually, and they, as a group, decide on a score for each of those proposals. So At step one, a particular proposal can get either an A or B or a C score. So a C score means there are serious flaws with that proposal. The evaluators do not see, do not feel that the proposal is feasible. There are major issues that they see. They also maybe they also see problems with the principal investigator. There's lack of independence. So these proposals just get a C score. Then you have proposals that get Bs. So these ones are of high quality, but just not sufficient to pass the step two. So here there may be some questions either on feasibility or on the principal investigator, maybe not both, but simply that the evaluators are just not fully convinced that this proposal needs to or can go on to step two. So the A proposals, the ones that are graded A at step one, are of sufficient quality and they go ahead and pass to step two of the evaluation. So the Bs and the Cs, they receive news of the fact that they did not pass the step two, and they also receive all the individual comments of the reviewers that have reviewed their evaluation, as well as a panel comment, which is basically the discussion, the outcome of the discussion during the panel meeting. So yeah, then the A proposals go on to step two. So at step two, there is again a remote phase where the panel members again evaluate the proposals, but this time they evaluate, in addition to part B1, they look at part B2, which is the full proposal that has all the details on methodology and also budget details. In addition to panel members, there are also what we call external reviewers that also evaluate the proposals at step two. So these external reviewers are scientists that are specialists in the different fields that are covered within your proposal. And they are actually chosen by the panel members during the step one panel meeting. So both the panel members and these external reviewers perform a remote assessment separately. And then again, I'll go over that in 1 second. And then again, they are invited to Brussels for a panel meeting. So only the panel members, not the external reviewers, they get together again in a panel meeting. And they also interview the applicants, and then they make the final decision on funding. So one other new feature of that the Scientific Council has implemented as of the 2024 work program is for purely logistical reasons to impose a 44 proposal interview limit for step two. However, if there are more than 44 A proposals at step one, the difference between 44 and let's say there are 48, the additional 4 A proposals will get a score that is now called A not invited. And so the good thing about that is that these applicants can now apply the following year without any kind of restriction. So when you're preparing your application, keep in mind that there are two parts basically. So you have the administrative part, and then you have the scientific part. So in part A, which is the administrative part, you just have the usual information that you are expected to fill in about your proposal, your information about yourself, the host institution, some questions on ethics, and so on. And then you also find the annexes. So these are just PDF files that, for example, copy of your PhD degree, statement of support from your host institution, and if needed, these documents that can attest to the extension of your eligibility window that we mentioned before. So these administrative documents are not seen by the panel members, so by the evaluators, except for the budget. But everything else they do not see. So there's no need to try to upload, any information that you think might help your case, because the panel members will not see that. What they will see, so as I said, the budget, and then they will look at the part B1, which is submitted as a PDF, and also part B2. So part B1, it's made up of an abstract and a cross-panel explanation in case you feel the need to include a secondary panel for your proposal. Then you have the extended synopsis, which is 5 pages. And then you have your CV and track record up to 4 pages. Then for part B2, the scientific proposal, which is 14 pages, and a list of your current ongoing funds, grants, which is a funding ID, so 1 page. So one other important thing to think about in part A, which is the administrative part, is to try to choose your descriptors and free keywords that describe your proposal carefully. So these descriptors and keywords, they influence which panel will evaluate your proposal, and they're the basis for the allocation to the panel member. And they may also determine whether a cross-panel evaluation is necessary in case specific expertise is not available within one particular panel. It is possible to request the cross-panel evaluation from another panel. So there are rumors going around that somehow these panel descriptors represent ERC scientific priorities. This is absolutely not true. As I said, there are no priorities for the ERC. So everything is fully investigator driven. It's you that chooses what you feel is important to study. So the panel descriptors are just there so that you can best choose. You can see what expertise is available in each panel, so you can best choose the panel that will evaluate your proposal. And then there's another rumor that the more cross-panel descriptors you indicate, the higher the funding chances, because you emphasize the interdisciplinarity of your proposal. This is also not true. There's no priority given to interdisciplinary proposals, so they are all treated absolutely equally. So let's spend a couple of minutes now looking at part B1, the research project. So as I mentioned, the new feature starting this year is that the evaluation is primarily focused on the groundbreaking nature, ambition, and feasibility of the project. What you can see in the box on the right are the questions that the reviewers need to answer when they're carrying out their evaluation. So we'd like to remind you that basically that there's no longer an explicit reference to high risk, high gain. So this was something that was mentioned in ERC proposals before. But the Scientific Council, they realized that the ERC will always encourage risky research. So better descriptors of the kind of proposals that they want to support are those that are groundbreaking, ambitious, and feasible. And there's no longer also an explicit reference to novel methodologies, which was the case before. But again, the Scientific Council realized that the novel methodologies is an element that is, of course, positive, but is not strictly necessary for an excellent proposal. You can have an excellent idea, and you can carry it out with standard methodologies as well. So here are some questions to ask yourself as you're writing your research project in part B1. So think about whether your project is new, is it innovative, is it bringing in new solutions, does it promise to go substantially beyond the state of the art, why is it important? Try to answer a complete question and think big. Make sure that the idea needs an ERC to do it, and it cannot be performed with a smaller or less prestigious grant. Think about how you can support your case. Think about a hypothesis. Do you have supporting evidence? It's important that you think about the feasibility, because that's actually, as I mentioned, what's being evaluated primarily in step 1. Think about whether your goals are realistic. Also think about, is it timely? Why hasn't it been done in the past? Why now? Why is now the right moment to do it, to do this research? Very importantly, the evaluators always look for a plan for managing risks. So make sure that you've thought about that, and that your risk is not too early on in the project. Evaluators do not really like that, because that may jeopardize the feasibility for the rest of your project. So think about any alternatives that you can propose to manage risks. Also think about why you are the best person to carry it out. And think about, know your competitors well, know what's the state of the art, and how your idea specifically is different, and how is your approach better compared to what's already out there. In case you do have collaborations within your proposal, you're absolutely free to do so. You're not expected to be an expert on absolutely every field that you cover within your proposal. But make sure that you show you are driving the collaboration. So it is you who's leading the project. So this is for the main grants. The main grants are individual grants. So you have to show that you're in charge. Now, the second part of Part B1, the CV and the track record. This is also a novelty as of the work program of 2024. So the Scientific Council decided to no longer implement prescriptive PI profiles. So instead, you're given this template that contains 3 sections. So section 1 is personal details. So here you just introduce your education, your qualifications, current positions, and any other positions that you've held in the past. Then you have the research achievement and peer recognition section. And here we encourage you to provide a little short narrative on the significance of the listed achievements. So instead of just making a list of publications or books or patents or any other achievements, well, in addition to that, try to write a little explanation on how they are significant and how they relate to the field of research and to the proposed project. So this is really your chance to showcase your own contribution to all of these achievements. And then there's also a third section, the additional information section. So here you are encouraged to add any additional relevant information about your research career that can provide some context to the evaluators when they are looking at your achievements in peer recognition. So, for example, here you can include things like career breaks. You can explain any kind of diverse career path that you may have had. So, for example, you could be someone that has started out as a researcher in the industry, for example, and then you decided to come back to academia. You can talk about that. You can mention any life events that have caused gaps within your CV. For example, some researchers here mention the COVID pandemic, which for those that had to carry out research in a laboratory, it caused significant delays. So basically, this is the Scientific Council wanted to give researchers the possibility and the flexibility to explain in your own words any kind of separate additional information that can help evaluators get a better understanding of you as a researcher and you as a person. So as I said, there are now these, it's a recommended template with these 3 sections. So we encourage you to use these sections and to make use of this flexibility that has been given to you. Explain your contribution and how your publications have impacted your particular field. Convince the panel that you are at the forefront of your research field. You're also able with this new format of the CV and track record to explain publishing habits in your field or in your country. So, for example, the experts they are aware that there are places, institutions, or countries where, for example, the director of a particular institute is always the correspondent or the main author, the last author in a journal publication, although they typically, they have nothing to do with the actual research. So this is something that you can mention in this additional section. You can say, basically it was me that drove that particular the publication and the research, but I had to put as a senior author the director of the institute because this is just how it's done in our country or in our institute. So this will make the evaluators aware that your independence is there, but you just haven't been able to show it because of this particular reason. So please describe accurately any other activity that can indicate scientific maturity. And as I already mentioned, if you know that there are gaps in your CV or any other issues, explain them in this additional information. Don't leave the evaluators guessing. Tell them what they should know. And here, yeah, so there are, of course, rumors going around that you will never manage to obtain an ERC grant unless you have publications in very high impact journals, Nature, Science, and so on. So this is not true. So the impact factor of a journal is absolutely not an evaluation criterion. So the evaluators are well briefed on that. They do not look at that. However, they will look at things like publishing with former supervisors in order to kind of get an idea of the maturity of the scientific independence of an applicant. So some questions to ask yourself as you're drafting your CV and track record. So think about whether you've shown your scientific leadership. Think about how you can show that you can work independently and you can manage a 5-year project with a substantial budget. List any prior research endeavors and explain why your role and contribution. Show that you're internationally active. Mention any international conferences that you were a speaker at, any committees you've served in, if you've been an editor of a journal or given any kind of expert advice. All of that information, you think about it and include it in this part. So part B1 is really all about finding the right balance. It gives the first impression of your project and yourself as a PI, and will, of course, determine if you pass the step 2. So here are some tips that we'd like to give you. So as I said, at step 1, the panel members evaluate from a generalist perspective. So they may not be entirely experts in the field that is covered within your proposal. So try to avoid jargon. Avoid excessive highlighting in your PDF. Do not oversell the project. These are scientists that read it, so do not make it a business proposition. Make sure there are no typos. I mean, obviously, make it as accessible as possible to a journalist. As I said, have it proofread by as many people as possible, and make sure there are proper legends to the figures and the tables, and also that the figure axes are clearly visible. So these are. It may sound obvious, but they do make a difference, and it does annoy evaluators actually to a great deal to not be able to read the figure axes, for example. So that was part B1. What about part B2? So part B2 is really about filling in the details. So here we'd like to remind you to make sure that there's a link, obviously, between B1 and B2. So no surprises. Do not introduce completely new information in B2 that you did not at all refer to in part B1. Make the project easy to read and attractive. Use the full space available. You have 14 pages, so use it. Make sure you include all the references. These are not included in the page count, so you should list them all. Although it's not a formal requirement, it is greatly appreciated by the evaluators to have some kind of a timeline. You need to have a little bit of a structure to your proposal. Do not simply repeat what you've already said in part B1, but go into the detail, specifically the methodological detail and your work plan. Explain your hypothesis. Provide, of course, any supporting evidence if it exists. Make sure that the quantitative and the qualitative differences to state-of-the-art are clear and referenced, because that's the first thing that the evaluators do. When they're reading a proposal, they immediately go to the literature and they try to see, who's already working on this, what's already been done, to try to determine what's different in your proposal. So it helps them if you already point them in the right direction. You tell them already what's been done and how your proposal is different and better. Always provide some kind of risk mitigation, because the evaluators, they will immediately think of possible risks, and they will appreciate that you've thought about that as well, and you have a plan B in place. So fill in your funding ID, so the list of your ongoing grants fully. And when you describe the team, think of everybody that's involved and explain the involvement of the team members and the collaborators. And again, be careful that the main grants are not consortium proposals. So they're not, this is not synergy. These are the main grants. So they're individual grants, and you are the main person driving the particular proposal. Also in part B2, you need to explain the resources and the budget. because the budget analysis is carried out within the step 2 evaluation. The panels have the responsibility to make sure that whatever resource you request is reasonable and well justified. So if there should be any budget cuts, they will be justified by the panels, of course, and they are on a proposal by proposal basis. So there are no cuts across the board allowed. So it's not that they can just cut parts of budgets of different proposals just so they can squeeze another one in. This is absolutely not allowed by the ERC. Some of your costs may be cut if they have not been properly explained. However, in general, the panels do not micromanage the finances. So if this is what you need and you've explained it, you will get the budget that you request. Yeah, so, and if you should ask for funding for open access because this is an obligation in Horizon Europe. So again, some rumors going around that if, for example, if you do not ask for a large sum, you have no chances because only complex and expensive projects get funded. Absolutely not true. Just request the budget that is necessary to carry out your proposal successfully. So no grant was ever rejected for asking too few funds, of course. And then the reverse of that is that if you ask for funding beyond the max, it will automatically be cut down. This is also not true. So what may be cut down is unexplained or not properly motivated requests. So if you just try to artificially inflate your budget, yeah, that may be cut. But otherwise, if everything is properly justified, you will most likely get exactly what you requested. So say that you have passed step 1 and you are now, you have been invited for an interview. Here are some tips to prepare for your interview. So of course, try to have clear and representative slides and focus on the science. As I already said, don't try to make a business presentation. That really irks the panel members because, you know, they're scientists. So you're talking to a peer. So, you know, just focus on the content. Try to keep the time, of course. Try to anticipate questions. Prepare for cases where you may not have an answer. Make sure your answers are to the point. So don't waste too much time going around in circles because it may not be to your advantage. Because the more questions you get to answer, the more the panel will get a better idea of your proposal, and the more likely they are to be positive about it. Of course, you need to know the details of your proposals and the methods very well. And as I mentioned, you need to know your competitors and your collaborators. And if you happen to have additional results that have been generated between the time that you initially submitted your proposal and the time of the interview, present it. Panels love that. They love to see that there's new data, that there's the feasibility is increased. So please do not hesitate to present new data. So some typical reasons for rejection of a proposal. On the research project side, you really need to try to find the balance between it being, the scope being not too narrow and not too broad. So it's really, that's your homework. You need to think about that and how to find the right balance. So don't go into too much detail that only super duper experts can understand what what the impact of your work might be, but also don't be too general and too without sufficient details, because that will also not work. Not having not being groundbreaking enough. So if it looks like the research is mostly incremental, that will usually be a typical reason for rejection, because the ERC does not fund incremental research. So it has to be something big, disruptive, that really will have an impact on a particular field. As I said before, so you are absolutely free to have collaborators within the project, but if you have too many, or if it doesn't come across clearly enough that you are the one in charge, then the panels might feel like basically it's too collaborative. And that's also a typical reason for rejection. If the work plan is not detailed enough or unclear, of course, if the risk mitigation is not clearly explained, those are also reasons. And of course, if there are any concerns of feasibility, so in part B2, if you did not give sufficient information methodology, then most likely the proposal will be rejected. Now, on the PI side, the two main reasons is that if it's felt that the PI just doesn't have a sufficient track record for their particular career stage. And also if it's just not, the panel are not convinced that the PI is able to carry out the project. So they're either not independent enough, or perhaps the expertise, the relevant expertise is not there. So that's why this sections, the CV and track record section, where you can add this section to explain your particular contribution to all your achievements. This is really important, because this is where they will form their opinion about your independence and your expertise. Now, if you're rejected, keep trying. You will be in a better position the second and the third and the fourth time around. So reapplications have a higher success rate. And having gone through the process once, you will definitely be in a better position. You will have the experience of the first time around, and of course you'll have also the feedback from the evaluation reports. So all the feedback from the individual evaluators, as well as the panel comment that describes the final opinion of the panel. All that includes information and the questions they may have that allow you to improve your proposal for a next application. So now I'll just like to zoom in a little bit on some opportunities, specifically for researchers in China that would like to apply for the ERC grants. So China is what we call a third country, so non-EU and non-associated country. So for applying for the main grant, so starting consolidator in advance, as I mentioned, one opportunity is, keep in mind that you can request this startup additional funding of 1 million euros to move to Europe. So this is, it's quite significant. You can keep affiliation with your home institute in China for at least 50% of your time. So you're only required to spend 50% of your time in Europe or associated country for the entire duration of the project. The other 50% of the time you are free to spend anywhere in the world. And team members can also be based outside Europe, depending on the project. The ERC grants are, by definition, open to the world, because, as I said, one PI per synergy group can be based entirely outside of the EU or associated country. So the synergy grants, as I mentioned, it's a collaboration between 2 to 4 PIs. And it can be in between 1 to 4 host institute. It can be entirely outside of the EU and associated country, and there's no other limitations on geographical settings. So the synergy grants are a good opportunity for researchers that are entirely based outside of the EU to get together, talk to your collaborators, and see if you can form a synergy, a grant consortium. So these grants run for 6 years, and the normal funding is 10 million euros, but you can also request an additional 4 million additional funding. So the other thing that's available to researchers from China are the ERC implementing arrangements. So these are some initiatives, international initiatives that the ERC has put together to promote opportunities for researchers from third countries to visit and collaborate with the ERC teams. And these are partially supported by funding agencies within your respective country. So for China, there's been one of these implementing arrangements signed already 9 years ago with the National Natural Science Foundation. So here's the ERC page where you can go to read a little bit more about the implementing arrangements and how you can apply. But basically the way it goes is that, so every November, so the November of every year, the ERC puts out what's called an expression of interest. So basically they get in touch with all the current ERC PIs that have a running grant, and they ask them if anybody is interested in hosting scientists from non-European, that are supported by non-European funding agencies. And then the ERC gathers the names of all these PIs and sends them to each of these non-European funding agencies. So in case of China, they receive every beginning of the year. So usually in January, they will receive a list of these. The National Natural Science Foundation will receive a list of PIs that are interested in hosting researchers from China to come and spend up to 12 months in their lab. So then it's up to you to check with your funding agency. So in your case, with the National Natural Science Foundation, to see whether you're eligible to apply for funding from them. And if you are eligible, then they will send you the list of these PIs, and then you can contact the PIs and see if you can arrange a visit to their lab. So this is just just a schematic of what I just said, how to apply for the implementing arrangements. And here I have some statistics of the implementing arrangements. So particularly with China. So as I said, it started in 2015. So every year, the National Natural Science Foundation receives, as you can see, about 500 to 600 lists of names of PIs that currently have ERC grants that are willing to welcome researchers from China to spend some time in their lab. And so far, there have been about 100 researchers from China that have taken advantage of this opportunity. So just so you know, it's something to keep in mind, and it's a nice opportunity to get some firsthand experience working and seeing how an ERC lab is run. And here I have also some statistics about Chinese. Chinese nationals that have obtained ERC grants. So from the inception of, from the start of the ERC in 2007 till now, there have been 89 grant holders that have Chinese nationalities. And only in Horizon Europe, so basically just in the last 3 years, we already have 48 in total. So these are, and then here I have in Horizon 2020, which was the previous framework program, there were over 17 team members also from China. So these are, they're encouraging statistics, but there's definitely room for improvement. So I hope that with the information that I've provided today, I've encouraged you to think about applying for any of these ERC opportunities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Alexandra. Give the floor to Manuel. Spoken, we'll have time for questions and answers.
Should I start my talk now, Carlos?
Go for it.
Okay, allow me to share my PPT. Okay. Can you see it, guys?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so, well, allow me to put it full screen. Okay. Okay, since I have 15 minutes, I will try to cover, following up what Alexandra mentioned to you. I've been an ERC grantee, starting grant, conducting my research from China. Actually, I'm a China professor working here from like 15 years. And when I applied for the ERC grant, I mean, it was in 2015 call. So I will give you an example on how to carry out a project precisely on what Carly mentioned to you. Being working in China, but having an European research house institution, which is no problem at all, like Alexandra mentioned to you. So going ahead on this, allow me first to give you some pointers before giving you the example of my case study as an example on a successful application for an ERC grant. Most importantly is one of the main points to have in mind within the context of preparing your application and also for your CV and your track records is developing being able to develop an academic ecosystem based on scientific excellence. So this is paramount for your project and for the preparation and for your track records. on this internationalization of world academic institution and which institution you will follow and you will choose as a host institution is paramount because some institution universities have some, let's say, working on traditional constraints based on diversity, mobility. So you really need to think is your main choice and not be based precisely on the rank. As I mentioned to you, the rank of the university, because now the obsession is the top ranking is not a crucial feature for your evaluation, as Alexandra mentioned to you. So research mobility is paramount, and importantly is how you have been developed an academic network based on your ideas, the previous research projects you have been conducting, and how you as a research leader, you've been able to integrate researchers around the world on these two important scientific values. Uh, Open access and science open to the world. So this is very important. On this, I give you as an example, prior to the preparation of my ERC grant in 2015, I arrived in China in 2011, and ever since, I was working and developing as a main leader and founder of the Global History Network in China. So I was here, you have the link. And here in this picture is where we starting precisely with the EURAXESS China. This is Jacques Dessoir, one of the predecessors of Carlis in EURAXESS. So this was funded, this Global History Network at Tsinghua University in Beijing when I arrived to China in 2011. So all these kind of things are important in the package for your preparation of your project. But of course, the most important thing is the idea in which I will come up in a second. So integrating your project. So Hessen project is the project I successfully developed and applied for the ERC grant. Hessen acronym stands for Global Encounters between Europe and China. So I was integrating and cooperating within this network with my colleagues from Japan, also from Europe, and also from Mexico. So integrating this project, connecting ideas. Here's an example of this network that I was working at the European University Institute in Florence, Tsinghua University in Tokyo, and also at the UNAM in Mexico. Summing up the scientific values, as I mentioned, open access and science for the world. Here, when I obtained the ERC grant in 2011, I started to develop the first year of the project in 2016. And when I moved precisely, when I moved from Beijing to Shanghai, I was working at Renmin University when I applied for the project. But the whole period of my ERC grant was developed at Shanghai Electronic University. That was my China affiliation, and still is my China affiliation. But during the ERC project, I developed it in Spain at the Pablo Olavide University Institute. So here is where I present with EURAXESS. This is Andrea Strersova, also one of the predecessors of Carlis. Laurent Bouchereau, the head of the science council department in the European delegation in Beijing. Here, when I present in Beijing my ERC project, being one of the few, I don't know now the statistic, but when I applied for the ERC and I got the successful application, I was the first and only one PI being based in China, so having and developing the ERC grant in a European university. And here I presented the project in Beijing with the president of the ERC, Jean-Pierre Bourguignon. An important issue, precisely when developing your idea, which I'm coming up. So we need to avoid linear model innovation, the traditional scope research, innovation, invention, and diffusion. So the key point is interdisciplinary studies. So your main topic should be connected and must be upfront in both the section A and B, connecting not only your research field, mine is economic history, but I was integrating my proposal with other branches and areas of social sciences like international relations, political science, sinology from the humanities, and also China studies. So it's very, if you ask me what is my main area, it's a little bit difficult to answer because I interconnect several fields. And an important issue is the transfer of knowledge. So this is paramount for the ERC and also the whole European schemes of the European Commission and the European Horizon, now is Horizon Europe program, is the transfer of knowledge and scientific mobility. Mobility is crucial from Europe to China and vice versa. And Alexandra was mentioned. So the main institution cooperating with the ERC is the Natural Science Foundation of China. So, okay, coming up for the part which is more interesting to you, and regarding my case, as an example, so it's how to apply for an ERC grant. In my case, all these programs, schemes, Alexandra already told this. I got a successful application for a starting grant. So this is what I got for my project that was developed from 2016 to 2022. I got one extension year because of the COVID pandemic. So I requested to the EU Commission and the ERC for 1 year extension. So that is possible to do. And you have here other information that Alexandra already mentioned to you for the criteria for other programs, Consolidator, Advance, and Synergy. Okay, so preparation for the project. As I mentioned, when I applied for this was in 2015, so things already changed in terms of mainly the CV. So when I apply, I didn't have to prepare a narrative, but now it's important to prepare a narrative of your track records, which meaning that not only the quantity, but the quality in terms of the groundbreaking ideas and precisely the breakthroughs you've been made in your research. So you must think big when preparing your project, and you have to prepare it in advance. So this I will cover this step 1 and step 2 if you pass to the interview. So you have here detailed information on the ERC website, so I will not cover this. Okay, so the grant profile, and this is for starting grantees. When I prepare this, the most important thing is to show that at the stage of your career that you are an independent researcher, so you are not working for another in the shadows. You are not working for another PI or senior professor. So this is very important, and you must demonstrate the groundbreaking nature and ambition and feasibility of your proposal. This, of course, has not changed. And again, the most important thing, of course, your CV is important, but it is your idea. So as Alexandra mentioned to you, and this is I stress, which is think big, and it is also important. This is again, I call it, if you allow me to use the metaphor, the Holy Trinity, meaning that the project is you, yourself, and yours. So no one else. Of course, you can have your academic network, which is important, and establish your academic and research collaborators. Of course, this is paramount because a project of this magnitude, you have to being able to have a important and novel team of collaborators around the globe. So this is a paramount issue. And also the ambition, as I mentioned, because you guys have to know that several grantees from the different fields of the ERC have got nomination for the Nobel Prize. So nothing is impossible. Difficult, but impossible. So think big. Don't get constrained for the small projects. So again, well, this is the profile, as I already mentioned to you. When you are preparing for a starting grant, at least you must finish your PhD within the least 2 and up to 7 years. After 7 years, you have to apply for a consolidator. So this is important, and also have a track record of publication made by yourself to show the maturity and evidence of your research independence. So this is very important. So when I now, as I mentioned to you, things in the terms of CV has changed because you need to make several paragraphs, up to 4 pages, no more 4 pages of your CV. So describing again, not quantity is irrelevant for the ERC that you put like 200 or whatever to be an over exaggerate. SSCI index or Nature Science articles in top journals. Because on this that when this publication or this big number, you have many people or many co-authors working with you. So that is irrelevant. So you need to put what you have you made by yourself and what is the most important in terms of quality. So quantity is not important. So on this, let's say put major like 5 or less than 5 SSCI journals, research monographs, at least for my field is important, and also top international conferences, prize awards, academic membership to show that you've been already working on your senior and independent career path. So this is paramount. And this is my track records when I got the ERC in 2017. So from 2016, 2011, I got my PhD at the European University Institute. Then I moved to Beijing in China, working as a postdoc at Tsinghua. Then I moved to Renmin University as a junior lecturer, and then promoted to associate professor. And then I moved to Shanghai Yatong University, in which now I'm a tenure associate professor. So I got the tenure, which my ERC helped me to get this tenure permanent position. So here, just an example, international profile and mobility is important. I have several states I'm visiting at UC Berkeley, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Macau. So the international profile is very important, not just a couple of days as conferences, but you have to show clearly that you have been done visiting position or states for at least 2 months in each institution to show that you have an outstanding academic international profile. So this is one of the books I got when I apply, and also several SSCI, the most important one, and not a big quantity. So the starting grant profile, one of the key points you may ask, and Alexandra mentioned to you, starting and consolidator, you must spend at least 50% of your total time dedicating on the project, meaning that a percentage you can dedicate 90%, 80, 70, 60. This 50% is calculated over the total time you've been dedicating to the project, because besides the project, you have many work to do in other things, your teaching, your permanent institution obligations. So this 50% is calculated, and maybe for a number of days, maybe it could be that you have to spend 3 months or less than 4 months in the European research institution that can, being in China, being a Chinese, can be perfectly working. You can dedicate that time during after the break, after the autumn term. So January, February, before the spring term, and then during the summer holidays, the summer break. So then it can zoom perfectly without any conflicting with your permanent affiliation in China. So on this, you have not be worried at all. So everything is possible, and the ERC is very flexible on this. And important things, working on the ideas, avoid hasty preparation, don't prepare the project within 2 months. Actually, I was working on, when I applied, it was the first time I applied for the ERC and I got it in the first shot. So, um, of course, there is no strict rules, but it depends also. There is also a percentage of, let's say, not luck, but depending on the panel, depending on the chair of the panel, because panels are rotate every year. So one topic can appear very, let's say, very shiny, very important for one panel, for one chair, and for another panel that when you apply another year maybe not that attractive. But again, topics are important, but the most important thing is the innovation of your idea and make the project feasible, high risk, high gain, or high risk now, high gain, because now I think the high risk is being cut it down in the ERC. Now you have to show the high gains of your project and also a contingency plan. So you need to identify the main problems in the project, but then you have to prepare a contingency plan to overcome those problems that for sure will come during the implementation of the project. Feasibility, novelty, proper methodology, novel hypothesis, the time scale and resources you are dedicating on this. Here, this has not changed much. I saw you here some forms, and I think I should be finishing in a couple of minutes, Carly. So how much time I still have?
Well, we should be wrapping up soon, but
Okay.
do convey the main message you've got.
Yes. Okay. So this is one of the main forms you will see when you apply. You prepare the online application. So this is not very daunting. All these formal, the forms and all these formalities you need to fill in because the host institution will help you on this. The most important thing you need to work, as Alexandra mentioned, a really good synopsis, a very shiny and attractive title, the keywords, and then working on the step one. This is the evaluation that Alexandra already mentioned. And this is the picture when I was for the interview, when I went to the interview in Brussels. I don't know now, Alexandra may correct me, that the on-site interview is only for the synergy grants. Now all interviews are conducted online, right, Alexandra?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. To be honest, I prefer myself to go to the on-site interview, which is more, it is nicer. But well, now we have this online form, so this online interview, which is convenient, so you don't have to bother yourself with traveling. And this is the result, the figures when I applied in 2015. So you have more or less a success rate of 10%. Now, maybe something similar, like maybe 15, right? Or not
Uh,
much.
it's a little bit higher now, 12, 13, maybe for starting grant,
Okay.
14 or so. Yeah.
So this is the figures, and I finished with this slide. So the total applications when I prepared the project was nearly 3,000 in all fields. My field is social sciences and humanities, so there was nearly 800, more than 700 application, and only 70 were selected. And my field is history, so there was maybe history around 12 applications were approved for funding. So you can see you really need to work. And the key point, and I finish with this, the key message for you guys, think big and thinking a very, very novel, innovative project, a breakthrough, something that will change the state of the art of your field, and that can be possible. So don't be constrained, don't think small, think big. So sky is the limit. So that is my last message. Okay, Carly, sorry if I overstepped the timing, but well, now I'm happy to go through questions or follow your guidance.
Thank you both, Alexandra, for your insights, and especially a big thanks for your encouragement. We have quite a few questions in the Q&A feature. I think the way we should do it, based on the questions being quite detailed and sort of process focused mostly, I think what we should do is should start with Alexandra, you providing answers to some questions that you think would be particularly effective and important to respond to. And then, Manuel, if you feel that either any of the questions that Alexandra has responded to or any of the other questions you feel very suited to respond to them, then please pitch in.
So should I just I could just read them out and
Yes.
Yeah. So the first one is, for foreigners working in China, should they apply through the ERC grant through a China employer or apply personally based on their citizenship? Yeah, so your citizenship has nothing to do with it. So what you need is to find a host institute in a EU member state or associated country. So that's the first step. So this host institute, this university or research center needs to support you. So in case you are awarded the grant, basically they need to host you with your grant, so you have the infrastructure that you need to carry out your work there. So how to get a host institute in Europe or associated country? Our best advice is network. Go to conferences, of course. Go to international conferences, meet scientists, meet colleagues. And like that, you get an idea of the kind of work that's going on in a particular research center or university, and that will make it easier for you to approach that particular place and request their support as you're applying. So what is sorry, yes, do you have a question?
And can you clarify the institution at which the applicant is based at the time of application does not come into the picture at all, right?
No, not at all. No. So you can, it can be wherever you are now, doesn't matter. It's just that in order to have the grant running, it has to be running officially at the EU or associated country institution for 50% of the time. One up here. Yeah, what is the best the best and most recommended grant type for foreigners researchers in China? So that's there's no best grant type. So it's whatever suits your profile, and depending on your seniority, along your research track. So yeah, that's it. That's the best I can say there. How would the Chinese researchers be funded if they visit an existing group? So actually here, I can share very quickly one slide that I had a backup slide here. So for the implementing arrangements, can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes. So basically, this is something that the rules of the implementing arrangement. So you apply basically via your funding agency in China in this case, this non-EU, so the Chinese, the National Science Foundation of China will have to continue to pay your salary, cover your health insurance, and cover your travel expenses. But if you arrange this with the PI that is willing to host you for a duration up to 12 months, but of course it can be shorter. And so there are different types of visits. So you can visit, let's say, just for a couple of weeks, just to kind of get an idea, just to see how it is. Or if you manage to discuss and to arrange this with this particular PI, and depending, of course, on your background, and if you're doing similar research, they may want to have you for up to a full year and to be integrated into their team and to actually carry out work for the ERC project. So in this case, then you can be the relevant expenses that occur during the visit can be covered by the ERC. So the research costs or whatever, let's say if you're in a life science lab, you can consumables and these things are covered through the ERC grant, and they can also provide a per diem. But your main salary will continue to be paid by the non-EU agency. So if you have any specific question, I think in this case it's best to contact the National Science Natural Science Foundation of China, because they will have the best questions on what they will cover. I hope that's clear. So let me go to the next question. So in case of a successful application for the ERC Synergy Grant with the collaboration of a PI from a Chinese institution, would the allocated funds for the Chinese partner be transferred directly to the Chinese institution? Or are there specific funding transfer regulations that apply? No, I mean, I don't think there's any specific regulations, other than whatever, legal things that need to happen. But basically, yes. So the one PI from China that's part of a synergy collaboration will just receive the funds that they request as they describe in the proposal. So I do not fit the first two venues based on my PhD award dates, so I'm left with advanced and synergy, which are much more challenging. Any tips? So just as Manuel said, just make sure you spend a lot of time thinking about your proposal, and yeah, maybe it would be an easier way would be to be part of a synergy group, because like that you also you go through the application process as a team, so you can learn from your team members. So maybe it's a little bit of an easier way to do it, and then with that experience you could apply for an advanced grant, individually. Yes, I already read that. If I understood right, China-based scientists receiving the grant will have to spend at least 50% of the time. Wait, they're jumping around. In the European host institution during the duration of the grant. Yes, that's correct. I guess scientists with families established in China should not consider. So, I mean, it depends a little bit on how you, so as Manuel said, so we are very flexible. So it's a 50% throughout the whole, the duration of the grant. So, it depends on your arrangement. You can make it work maybe with holidays, with vacations, with like some extended stay. It doesn't mean that you have to, move permanently and leave your family behind. So I don't think that it leaves anybody out, but you will need to work out an arrangement. Yeah.
Daniel, do you have any input specifically on this question?
The question, this one, if China-based scientists receiving grant will spend at least 50% of the time. Yeah, I mean, on this, as I mentioned to you, everything is very flexible. The only issue is that you make the arrangement depending when will be more convenient. You have to fulfill first your teaching, when it will be, if you are based in China, like as I mentioned to you. First of all, depending also how much time you will choose for a total time of dedication of the project, because 50% means not 50% of the year. Like if you say you dedicate 60% of your time dedication to the project, then is the 60% in terms of day that will be calculated. So maybe in my case, it was 4 months per year because I put a bit more than 50. But if you put 50 or 60, maybe it could be even less, like 2 or 3 months. So it depends of the arrangement, it depends of the project. In my case, because you have to consider the research field, the field work, which is paramount. In my case, I have to go to international archives in Europe, China, America. So, well, that is a lot of time dedication. But as I mentioned to you, and also the arrangement with the host institution. So on this, I would say is very flexible. I mean, in terms of the host institution, I mentioned, I stress again, don't choose, I don't know, like a top university from Europe. Choose the one who fits more for your research agenda, for your research plan. And in my case, I choose Seville in Spain for one important reason, because there are the most important archives for China global trade, because my field is global trade during Qing China. So those archives are the most important and underexplored. So that's why I received the grant to do a work that no one has done it before. So this is very important for the calculation of the resources, time dedication, host institution. But again, all of that doesn't matter. The most important thing at the end of the day, guys, you need to be focused on the idea. So the rest will come up. The rest is very flexible, as Alexandra mentioned to you.
Thanks, Manuel.
So maybe we can answer these last two questions very quickly. I think we can do
Okay.
it. So could you more clearly explain the eligibility of a starter grant if you're based in China? Do you need to have a secondary affiliation? So yes, indeed. So you need to get an affiliation at a host institute in Europe first. And then could the time spent working in a company outside of academia be considered for extending the eligibility after PhD? No. So unfortunately, it's not one of the reasons. I work for a UK institute in China. It is much easier to find collaborators from the mother campus. Any privileges or considerations for UK? No. So so host institutions in the UK are they have signed the associated country agreement. So the UK is fully in. So any host institution in the UK is eligible to apply through them to any of ERC grants.
And that applies to any other these most needs under Horizon.
Yes.
Fantastic. We've gotten through the questions. We've almost stayed within our allocated time. I want to say a very big thank you to Ms. Alexandra Dusa from the European Research Council Executive Agency and Professor Manuel Perez-Garcia from Jiaotong University and an ERC grantee. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. For those interested in future information about ERC grants, please follow the EURAXESS China WeChat as well as other social media. We will try to provide the latest information, and we will follow up this presentation with the materials that were shared earlier. Thank you so much. Thank you.